Some people lie and sweat a little. Some people lie and stumble over their words. George Santos, he only looked uncomfortable when the truth accidentally showed up. Reality for him wasn't solid. It wasn't sacred. It wasn't even permanent. Reality was clay, soft and bendable. Something to mold mid-sentence, depending on who was listening, depending on their mood, depending on whether they wanted to believe. Every time he opened his mouth, a new version of his life unfolded, not refined, not corrected, replaced entirely. Each version a different character, each claiming confidence as proof of authenticity. Listening to him didn't feel like learning about a politician. It felt like watching someone improvise their identity in real time, hoping sheer performance would carry them, and for a while it did, because George Santos understood something that many never do. In modern systems, attention moves faster than verification. Confidence moves faster than reality, and in that gap, momentum becomes power. He didn't enter politics with a plan. He entered with momentum, and momentum, once it starts, creates the illusion of direction. Once it moves, it feels unstoppable. He spoke like a man who didn't anticipate resistance. Questions were background noise. Facts were optional. Consistency was irrelevant. Memory was a tool, not a requirement. When someone asked a question, he didn't pause. He didn't clarify. He layered the narrative with more words, more details, more confidence, more performance. At some point, the story stopped being about facts. It became about motion. Performance doesn't need logic. It only needs confidence. He didn't treat his past as something to defend. He treated it like a wardrobe, a collection of outfits to pick and choose from. Each audience got a different version. Each room heard a different story. Apologies were absent, explanations optional. Forward motion was everything. And this is where the comedy becomes unsettling. Not the light kind, the dark kind. Because this wasn't one man lying. It was a system that rewards spectacle over substance. It was a world where performance outruns verification, where speed outruns truth. The contradictions piled up, dozens, scores, and each time he didn't retreat. He accelerated, so he filled the space with words, motion, energy, sheer momentum. The story became alive. It refused to be pinned down. It refused to be simple. It became a dark performance art piece, with him as the unwillingly celebrated lead, like someone driving the wrong way down a one-way street, honking at everyone else for being confused. And somehow, people moved aside. Not because they agreed, not because they believed, but because verification is slow, because thinking takes energy, and most people are tired. George Santos didn't aim to be trusted. He aimed to be unavoidable. And there's a difference. Trust takes time. Attention only needs volume. He filled every silence with words, every gap with emotion, every space with performance. Each lie was not necessarily meant to deceive. It was meant to occupy. Occupy minds, occupy conversations, occupy narratives before scrutiny arrived. Even as contradictions stacked higher, he didn't slow down. He didn't hesitate. He accelerated. Chaos multiplied. Each new contradiction became a spark. Confusion grew. Confusion creates fatigue. Fatigue kills questions. And when questions die, performance becomes authority. He treated identity like a costume rack, history like props, facts like optional dialogue. Every crack in the narrative became a chance to rearrange. Every misstep became a scene. Every failure became a feature, not a flaw. He never allowed silence. Silence invites thinking. Thinking invites doubt. Doubt threatens performance. Even when reality tried to catch up, it could not. Not in the moment. Not in the conversation, not in the fleeting attention span of the audience. Eventually, the system intervened, but the story had already run far, far beyond what anyone expected, far beyond what anyone imagined. And that distance itself is the lesson. George Santos didn't invent lying. He didn't invent momentum. He didn't invent spectacle. He exposed how systems work, how confidence and narrative manipulation can outpace verification, how attention itself can be manipulated as a form of power. And the most uncomfortable truth, even after he left, someone watched and learned the wrong lesson. Not the cautionary tale, the blueprint. Speak clearly, never hesitate, never apologize, never pause. Because pause is where reality catches up. And that blueprint is still alive today, waiting for the next performer. Someone confident, someone fast, someone bold. And when it arrives, it will use the same techniques. Volume over verification, momentum over truth, confidence over credibility. And the most disturbing part, it works until someone decides to stop it. And often, that stop comes too late. Somewhere, someone will take the stage, same suit, same smile, same tone, and say with absolute certainty, "Trust me, I know exactly what I'm doing. And as long as people confuse certainty with competence, confidence with honesty, speed with intelligence, the story never truly ends. It just waits for the next audience, for the next performer, for the next moment when attention outruns verification. And the ripple effect continues. Each story, each contradiction, each bold claim spreads faster than reality. And every observer learns something, either caution or mimicry. The performance repeats itself. Actors change, but the rules stay the same. Fast speech, confident tone, little regard for consistency, maximum motion. George Santos became a template, a living experiment in how far performance can travel before scrutiny intervenes. Every misstep becomes a stage for improvisation. Every contradiction, a new scene. Each lie, a spark for the next narrative. People watch, laugh, cringe, sometimes confused, sometimes fascinated. But attention remains, and attention is currency. When contradiction surfaces, he accelerates. When questions arise, he layers stories. When the audience hesitates, he moves faster. Momentum is everything. Motion is power. And as long as people are distracted, no one has the time to examine the truth. Identity becomes flexible. History becomes optional. Facts become props. Each version of himself is temporary, but the performance is eternal. The world rewards spectacle. Speed becomes credibility. Noise becomes authority. And those who come after him watch carefully, learn the mechanics, and adapt. The strategy is simple in theory, complex in execution. Keep moving. Keep talking. Never let silence settle. Silence invites doubt. Doubt invites verification. Verification threatens performance. So words become weapons. Motion becomes armor. Confidence becomes armor plating over empty space. He didn't care if the narrative matched reality. He cared if the audience moved with it, if the story flowed, if attention followed, if contradiction was masked by speed. And it worked, time and again, until the contradictions were too high to ignore, until reality intervened. But even then, the echoes remained. Because human attention is limited, and even when scrutiny arrives, the ripple of performance outlasts the truth. Santos taught lessons without intending to. How far can confidence go? How resilient is motion? How much noise can override fact? And these lessons are now templates for others to observe, for others to imitate, for others to amplify. Momentum is contagious. Performance is replicable. Confidence can be taught. And somewhere in the background, someone is taking notes, practicing intonation, timing, pacing, mimicking the fearless delivery, the unapologetic audacity. Santos became a case study, influence without verification, attention without truth, and the system allows it, because spectacle often beats substance, because the world rewards those who move fastest. Questions die in the momentum, contradictions are drowned in volume, reality is postponed, performance becomes authority. He filled space with sound, with energy, with stories that bend, with truths that twist, with lies that accelerate, and people watch, people react, people move on, and the performance persists. Identity is malleable, history is optional, facts are tools, not requirements. Every audience receives a curated version. Every setting demands a new layer. Every encounter offers a different story. Apologies are never spoken. Clarifications are never offered. Forward motion is the only rule. And when reality encroaches, speed becomes the shield, volume becomes armor, confidence becomes the sword. Chaos is part of the strategy. Confusion is useful. Fatigue is expected. When the audience tires, questions stop, and in that silence, performance solidifies into authority. Every contradiction, every misstep, every absurdity is fuel for the narrative engine. The story refuses to end. The performance refuses to pause. Momentum is king. Noise is queen. Attention is the currency. Every lie spins forward. Every misstatement multiplies. Every contradiction is reframed. George Santos doesn't just survive scrutiny. He leverages it. He accelerates through it. He turns doubt into spectacle. He converts questioning into performance. And the audience? They watch bemused, sometimes skeptical, sometimes fascinated, but always engaged. Momentum is contagious, and the system amplifies it. Even after headlines fade, even after fact checks catch up, the influence remains. Because the performance leaves echoes, and echoes influence the next actor. The next performer watches, learns the timing, mimics the cadence, masters the tone, Confidence substitutes for credibility. Volume substitutes for verification. Motion substitutes for truth. Even when contradictions mount, the story continues. Even when scrutiny arrives, performance persists. Momentum outpaces scrutiny. Noise outpaces verification. Confidence outpaces truth. Every actor in the system now understands the game. Every observer learns the mechanics. Every aspirant studies the pattern. Santos taught a lesson without intending to. Confidence is contagious. Motion is persuasive. Noise is influential. And the blueprint survives. And now the cycle continues. Someone else steps forward. Someone bold. Someone fast. Someone confident. They mimic the moves. They accelerate through contradiction. They layer stories over gaps. They perform through uncertainty. Momentum carries them. Attention shields them. Confidence becomes their armor. The story never ends. The audience never fully verifies. The narrative continues to evolve, to twist, to spread. And each performance leaves echoes for the next. Each contradiction becomes fuel. Each pause invites scrutiny. So never pause. The lesson remains clear. Trust me, I know exactly what I'm doing. And as long as people confuse certainty with competence, confidence with honesty, speed with intelligence, the story never truly ends. It only waits, waiting for the next performer, the next audience, the next moment when attention outruns verification.